Welcome to the Python Django web development series. In today's session, we will learn Python Django MySQL interaction. So we will use MySQL as our database and we will interact with the database. So we will learn the CRUD application, which is called the creation and insertion into the database, then reading the data from the database, then updating the data values in the database and deleting the data values in the database. So this is a very important concept for the web development. Here we are using MySQL as the database and the front end is the Python Django. So let's see what are the prerequisites. We should aware about how to create a Python Django project and we should be able to run that successfully on the browser. So we have already done this in the previous session. In the next requisite, we should have the MySQL server downloaded and installed in our system. So this second step has also been discussed in the previous session. So we have already done these two steps. We have created a Django app which is running successfully, and we have installed the MySQL server which is also running successfully. So let's see what are the steps for this create and insert. So we will learn today our first objective from the CRUD application is to learn how we can create a database, we can create a table, and then how we can insert the database from the front end into MySQL. So let's see what is the step number one. In step number one, we will have to create a database in the MySQL. So let me open the MySQL client. So I'll open MySQL client, which we have already installed in the previous. So I'll give the password root. So this is and now I'll create a database here. So I'll create database, let's say my DjangoDB. You can give any name to the database. So I'm creating here create database my DjangoDB. You can see the database is created successfully here. Let's go to the step number two. In step number two, we need to open our Python Django project and we need to configure database in the settings.py file of the Django project. So let's open the PyCharm. So I have already opened the PyCharm and this is the app which we have already created. This is running successfully. We have created my Django site. So we will go inside the settings.py. So you can see inside the app we have the file settings.py. So this is settings.py. We'll go inside the settings.py and we will search for the database section. So you can see this is the database section. Here it's written for the SQLite. Currently we are using the MySQL. So let me comment this multi-line comment. I'm using multi-line comment here to comment this database section, and I'll add my own database code here. So just to configure, we need to have this database code where we will set the engine as the django.db.backends.mysql, and this is the name of the database we had just created. Make sure this name is similar. Then this is the user of the MySQL. We had already seen at the time of installation of the MySQL, we had set user as root and password as root. So this should match. So the user is root, the password of the database MySQL is root, the host will be localhost, and the port on which MySQL runs, that is 3306. So I'll just copy from here and will paste so that I'll save the time. So this is the database configuration into the settings.py. Let's see which is the next step. In the next step, we'll go to we'll create a template in Django app from which we can insert the data. Basically, this is the web page which we will be using to insert the data. So let's go inside the our project, and inside my app, I'll right click and I'll create a new HTML file. So this is a new template, and I'll give this template the name user reg, because I want to create a template for user registration page where user will come, enter the data and register himself into the database, and its details should be stored into the database. So I'm creating a template named user reg. So inside the body section, I'll simply write the HTML code. We will not discuss CSS here. Uh, we will be discussing CSS in the upcoming sessions so that we can style our templates in a better way. So inside the body, I will be using the center tag, and inside the center tag, I'll be using the form tag so that I can create a form, and I'll give this form a name as, let's say, register form. So I'll give it a register form, and then I'll give a method. So here we have two methods for the form. So I'll use post method here, and then I'll have the action. And in the action, I'm just writing insert user. So this is basically a function that we will be defining into views.py. So we will be talking about this very soon. So this is a form. Inside the form, I would like to create few fields. Let's say if I want a user ID, username, email, and contact to be inserted into the database. So I'll create input type. So here I'll create four input types. So this is I'll also use pre-tag so that everything looks good here. We will be discussing CSS in the upcoming session. So inside the pre-tag, I'll use these four input types: one for the user ID, one for the username, one for the user email, and one for the contact. So this is all four. I have given text time. The name it's here TUID. T I have just prefixed it just because it's in template, but you can give it any name. You have to memorize it. So this is in template. So I have given TUID, T uname, T user email, T. Okay, I need to change this to T contact. Okay, so this is T contact. So these names you can specify according to your requirement. Don't give any spaces in between. Then this is the value attribute I have added, and I have given the width to all these text boxes. And now once we have the text box, I need to add a submit button as well. For that, I'll use input type submit. So let me copy and paste. Let me copy and paste here so that I'll save time. So this is input type submit, input type submit. I have given the name REH, and I have given the value click to register. This will be displayed on the web page. I have given the width and I have given the height. So this is how we have designed the template. I would like to add one more code, that is the CSRF token, which will be required for the database purpose in the Python Django. So this is a required command. I'll cut this and I'll paste it just under the form tag. So I'll just paste it under the form tag, and now this is our template. We want to look it onto the web page. For that, let's follow the further steps. So the next step in this is the create a view in views.py for the above template. As we know that for each template, we have to create a view in the views.py. So I'll simply copy this and I'll go to views.py. So let me search views.py. So this is views.py. Inside, you can see I already have two views here. I want to have one more view for this new template which I had just created. So this is user reg, the name of the template. You can see user reg.html. So I have given user reg.html, the request parameter. We'll return the render, and then inside render we have three parameters: the request parameter, and then the name of the HTML page, userreg.html because it is inside my app. So I have written my app. You can see here it's the my app folder. So my app slash userreg.html and then dictionary. So this is how we create the view in the views.py. The next step is to create the URL pattern for this view. For each view, we have to create a URL in the urls.py and that too in the apps urls.py. So we'll open this urls.py and you can see here we have URL patterns just like these patterns. I'll create one more pattern for the user reg view just we have defined here. So in this we have created user reg which we are fetching from views. So this is views.userreg and I have given name as user reg. So this is the URL pattern we have created for the view. So in the sequence, we had created a template. We have designed a template. Then for the template, we had created a view in views.py. And then for that view, we have created a URL pattern into the urls.py. So before moving on, let's see how it's looking, whether the page is up and running. For that, we'll go to the terminal. We'll go to the terminal and I want to run the server. For that, Python manage.py run server. So you can see server is running. Let me click onto this server and in the URL I need to specify slash user reg. So this is the URL pattern we had just created. So I'll click on this and you can see this is the form I'm just getting. Let me add one heading into this in the user reg. So this will let me add one heading here h1 register form. So I've just given one heading using the h1 tag. I pressed Ctrl S. I'll go back to the browser and I'll click on refresh and you can see this is register form. One text box for the user ID, one for the name, one for the email, one for the contact, and this is the button we had just created. This is the submit button. Okay, so let's see which is the next step. The next step is to create a model in models.py file of Django project. Basically, this is a creation of the table. So accordingly, we have four fields: UID, name, email, and contact. So I want to have one table in the database uh, with these four fields: one UID, one name, one email, and one contact. So accordingly, we need to create a model class into our models.py. Before creating the models class, we need to import this models into the models.py. So let me copy this. We'll go to the models.py of our project. So this is models.py of our project. We'll get inside this and on top we'll be writing the importation code. So this is from djangodb import models. And now we need to create the model class which will be using the keyword class. And uh, I want the name of the table to be user. So you can see here this is keyword class and this is the user. Basically this is a model and I want the table name to be user as well, so that's why I have specified it here user parameter. This models dot model, it's a parameter. Then we have created four attributes which will be acting as four columns in the table. One is the UID, then uname, then uemail, and then ucontact. So this is the data type models.char field. I have kept all these four columns char field type, and this is email field type. And maximum length you can specify. You can change the maximum length of each column here. So we have defined four columns: UID, uname, uemail, and then the meta of the class db table, and this is the name of the table which is user. So this is how we'll create the model. Every time we need to have a table in our database, we need to have a model for that. So let's say if we want to have a login table, then we have to define a class login, and then the attributes for this class will be behaving as columns. Let's see which is the next step. In the next step, we will run the command in the terminal to create migrations. This is important because once we create a class, we need to make migrations and then we need to perform the migrate option. So for that, we'll go to the terminal, and the server was running. So I am exiting from the server using Control C. Okay, now I need to run the make migration. So first I'll type Python manage.py make migrations. So this will make migrations, and then I need to press Python manage.py, and then we need to perform migrate. So every time you will create a new model, so this migration step is required. So you can see applying my app model, and now we have all these models inside the database. So in the next step, we'll go to the MySQL and check whether the table is created or not. So let's go to the MySQL. Remember, we had created one database, so we need to go inside this database. For that, we'll write use and then mydjangodb. So now we are inside the database. Once we are inside the database, we can check whether any table is created through the model class or not. So we'll write show tables. So you can see all these tables are created as soon we had executed the migrate command, and this is the user which we had defined into the models.py. So you can see the user table has been created. Let's see the description just by typing desc user. Okay, and this is the description of the table. The ID column is by default added by the Django. This is the auto increment and primary column, and rest we had UID, UNAME, UEmail, and UContact. Let's see whether do we have any data in this right now. So for that we use select asterisk from user, the table name, and you can see currently we do not have any data in this. Our objective is to insert data from the front end in the table. Let's see which is the next step. Okay, in the next step, we'll go in the views.py and we'll import the model which we had just created into the models.py. So we need to import the model into views.py. So let's go inside the views.py and we need to import. So I'll go to the importation part. So we'll import from .models import user. This is the model we had just created. And now we need to define insert method in the views.py. So we'll define the insert method which will actually accept the values from the template and then it will insert it into the table which we had just created in the MySQL. So insert method, let me copy this and let me paste here. So it will save my time. So this is the insert user method. You can write any name here. This is insert user method. Here we are using the post method to fetch the values from the template and store it into temporary variables. So this VUID, VU name, VU email, VU contact are temporary variables. I've just prefixed them by V just to understand that these are variables inside the views.py, right? And we have to write request.post, and you can see here TUID. So this TUID must be similar into the template and this name of the component TUID. So from this text box will be associated with this request.post parameter TUID. So this name must be similar. It must be matched. It's case sensitive. It must be matched exactly. So this is TUID and this has to be TUID. Similar in the next case, if it is TU name, then in the views.py we should have TU name. So in this way, we will fetch all the values using the post method. Remember, we had defined inside the form method is post. So we'll use this post method and we'll fetch everything here. And then this is the user class we had defined, and inside we'll set the value. So this is VUID, temporary variable inside the view, and on the left hand side this is the name of the column inside the table. So you can see in the MySQL, this is the first name, UID. So on the left side, this is UID, and on the right side, this is the temporary variable. So how it is going? We are fetching the value from this TUID from the template. Then we are storing this value into a temporary variable inside the view, and then from the view we are setting into the MySQL column. So this is how, this is MySQL column. This is how we are fetching from the front end template, getting inside the views, and then from the view we are sending it to the MySQL column. So the naming convention has to be followed. Remember, the right hand side is of the temporary variable, and the left hand side should be exactly matching with the MySQL column name. So this is uname. So here you can see the left side is uname. Okay, and then this is the name of the table, and we'll finally use this is temporary variable again, us.save. So this will save the data inside the MySQL. And then we can return and we can go to any page. Here it's userreg.html. We can change this page from userreg.html to any other web page where we want to go after inserting the data values into the database. So I just wanted to change it to index.html. So this is one template I'm already having. So we'll switch from user edge to index.html once we have submitted the data values inside the MySQL data table we had just created. Let's see which is the next step. In the next step, we need to create the URL pattern into the urls.py for this specific view. As we already know that for each template we need to create view, for each view we need to create a URL pattern. So we'll take this into the urls.py. Again we'll open the urls.py. So this is urls.py. Remember, we had just created this user reg URL pattern, and now we'll also create the insert user URL pattern. So this is the insert user. This name should match with the function name here. This is insert user, and this is insert user, views.insert user. So we have created the URL pattern as well. And now let's see which is the next step. Okay, we are all done. Now we need to run the server and insert the data using the template we had just created. So let me go and run the server. We'll go inside the template and we'll use python manage.py run server. So the server is running. I'll click on the server. It will open index file for me. So I need to append the URL. So this is user reg. We had just defined into the views. Hit enter, and now this is the form. Now we'll input some data. Let's say UID 1, name. Let me write Techlearners, and email. Let me write techlearners.ns@gmail.com, and contact field. Let me write 8127864542. So these are all the data we have written here: user ID, name, email, and contact. Now I'll click on this button to insert data. As we have already defined redirection to the index.html. So once we click on this, this server should take us to the index.html web page. So we can see we are getting one error that is related with the URL, that it is saying that we are not getting this URL user reg / insert user. So just to correct this, we need to go to the user reg.html, and inside the action here, I have not specified this slash. So I need to specify this is slash, and then I must specify a 2 dot for getting it into the previous directory. So this is how I make changes into the URL when calling this insert user view from the views.py. So let me reconnect, let me refresh, and let me give the values once again. So this is one, name is Tech Learners, then we have techlearners@gmail.com, and then I can specify the contact number. And I'll click on register, and you can see I'm directly back to the index.html. That means the data values must be submitted. So let's go and check. So this is the last step. It's to log in into the MySQL and query the database table to confirm whether data is inserted or not. So let me go to the MySQL, and I'll just get inside the database, use, and then I need to write the name my Django DB. So I'm inside the database. Now I need to view the table. So let's say show tables. Here we have the user, and now I need to see the data inside the user. So this is select asterisk from user, and you can see the values are inserted into the table successfully. So this is how we can have the first step of the CRUD application, that is we can create and we can insert data values into the MySQL database from the Python Django app. In the upcoming session, next session, we will be talking about the next step of the CRUD application, that is how to read values from the database and display it onto the web page.